Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Dan Hiscock, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Flight Lieutenant Gregory Young. This evening, we are honoured to acknowledge the Right Honourable John Speller MP, Chairperson of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly's Subcommittee on Transatlantic Economic Relations, and Mr Marcos Perestrello de Vasconcelos MP, Chairperson of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly Subcommittee on NATO Partnerships, and the accompanying delegation. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Return and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Service Clubs Association, and we welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. Now, if you're able, I please invite you to stand and join in singing the National Anthem. If you're able and you wish to, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read just one of the stories behind those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Frederick Joseph Cummins. Frederick Cummins was born in the Sydney suburb of Darlinghurst on the 17th of December 1912, the son of Thomas and Elizabeth Cummins. After his schooling, he went to work as a taxi driver, living in the Sydney suburb of Croydon. Frederick Cummins enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force on the 14th of March 1940. He began training at Greta Camp just outside Newcastle in New South Wales. On the 18th of May, he married Eileen Lewis at St Joseph's Church in Burwood Heights. In August, Cummins was granted pre-embarkation leave, and at the end of the month, the newlywed couple's time together ended, with Cummins embarking at Sydney for overseas service. Arriving in the Middle East, Private Cummins joined the 2nd of 4th Battalion as it trained in Palestine in preparation for its first campaign against the Italians in eastern Libya. The 2nd of 4th played a small role in the capture of Bardia in early January 1941 and was more active during the battle for Tobruk, fighting particularly hard to secure the Wadi Derna. The battalion became the first Australian unit to enter Benghazi in early February and then garrisoned the town. In April 1941, as the Allies grew concerned about the German invasion of Greece, a combined force of British, Australian and New Zealand troops was deployed. This was to be a short-lived campaign as the Germans advanced quickly, rapidly pushing the Allies back. In freezing temperatures, the 2nd of 4th Battalion was heavily engaged around Vevi in northern Greece. By mid-April, the battalion had been forced to withdraw through a series of rearguard positions until it was evacuated by sea on the 26th of April. Some who missed the evacuation were captured and sent to prisoner of war camps. The remaining members of the battalion, Cummins and about 500 of his comrades, landed on Crete the next day and joined the force defending Herculean airfield. The Germans launched an airborne invasion on the island on the 20th of May. The 2nd of 4th fought around the airfield, but the German paratroops were able to gain a foothold outside the defended area. Following German successes elsewhere on Crete, the remaining members of the battalion were evacuated from Herculean by sea on the 29th of May. Private Frederick Cummins, however, would not be among their number. He had been killed on the 15th of May, 5 days before the invasion began. That morning, German aircraft dropped 62 bombs on the 2nd of 4th's position near the airfield. Cummins, serving in the transport platoon, had been driving back to the battalion lines from the town with Staff Sergeant Moss when the air attacks began. They drove as far and as fast as was prudent and then sprinted for a cave in the D Company area. Cummins was in front of Peter Moss and had entered the cave when a bomb exploded on top of it, collapsing the whole thing on both of them. Moss was extradited, badly shaken but otherwise unhurt. But by the time Cummins was dug out, he was dead. He was 28 years old. Today, his remains lie in Souda Bay War Cemetery under the inscription chosen by his grieving family, "Sweet Sacred Heart of Jesus, have mercy on his soul." His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Frederick Joseph Cummins, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We'll leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. Wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.